Terry, you talked about this a little bit in your talk, but I wonder if you could reflect just a bit more on what you think the biggest disconnect is between ad people and the sort of general public.
What the biggest one is?
Some of the biggest.
Well, as I was sort of hinting at in my talk, I just wonder sometimes if what we think is a really funny idea really resonates sometimes. I'm not sure it's the strategy. I think the strategy has to be there, obviously. There has to be a meaningful reason why the ad exists, because when you scrape it all away, if that isn't there, it doesn't matter what the idea is. But I wonder at times where, I'll be in some restaurant and an ad will come up on TV that I've had something to do with that I think is really funny, and there's not even a titter in the room, and I just wonder why that is. I think people are really smart. It's not that they don't get it. It's just my fear is I wonder if the taste level of an ad guy is the taste level of someone who lives in Mississauga who takes the early bus to work in the morning. That's my biggest fear. Like, we're all wearing beautiful, expensive black turtlenecks and drive European cars, and meanwhile there's a woman who takes the early bus to work in Mississauga. So that's always my silent fear. I grew up in Sudbury, a small mining town where we had nothing. We had the CBC, we had one channel, we had 2 radio stations. That was it. The geographical formation around Sudbury didn't let any other channels come in. But I'll say this about Sudbury, it was full of real people, just real, like working class, real people. And I love that I grew up in that town because, if anything, I hope I have a common touch. And how important that is in our business, because you can be highfalutin and fancy and have all the acronyms in place. We need that ASAP. You can have all that working for you. And if you don't have the common touch, you will never connect. So that's my little fear.
And it's funny, from my side, in my world, it's the attitude of, oh, they'll do it. It's sort of like brands will come in and say, let's just get these consumers to make some YouTube videos and post them, and then they'll share them all, and they'll do all that. Oh, they'll do it. And I'm like, no. No, they won't. And they will not do it in droves, actually. And it's amazing to me because one of the things that I talk about in the book is I have a section I call Praise of Slow. I think a lot of people come to us because they think the internet is fast, cheap, and easy. And it's not. Building community, building people who really care and finding
those people. It's slow, expensive, and hard.
Yeah, and painful too sometimes. And what you realize in the process is that it's almost the difference between dropping a nuclear bomb and then door to door, which is, if you sort of look at what's happening in the US and around the world, it's exactly that. They have the mentality, if you drop a bomb, you put them in where they got to go door to door, and we see what happens. And what I'm doing is I'm going door to door. But these brands, I think, have that gap of, can't we just buy that? And I think brands don't really understand that the currency isn't money. The currency is trust, community, and value. And it's always been that way in marketing and advertising. Just mass media shook us up a little bit. Before mass media existed, people would say, where did you get this jacket? And you'd have conversations, and people would tell other people. Now we have platforms, this technology that allows you to broadcast that idea. And I think that for me is the biggest gap where brands really think they'll do that. And it's like, no, you have to be so great and so amazing with your products and services and how you serve them before anybody will create one stitch of anything for you. They can pay them to do that, which they've done. Like Doritos pay people. If you submit an ad and it gets voted, we'll pay you and put you on the Super Bowl. That wasn't user-generated content as we know it. That was an ad campaign. That was that used one of those levers to happen. I think that's a huge thing. Brands don't get it. They really think people will do this stuff, and they won't.
I remember when Spark first went on the air, probably in about the first 6 months, I felt like I was literally going on the air every week and begging people, for God's sakes, please go to the blog and leave a comment. I'll come to your home.
Give you dinner.
It's hard. It's very hard work, for sure. So since you're in different areas of the industry, I wonder if you could reflect on, because you alluded to this, Mitch, a little bit in your talk about, how digital can work with the main sort of ad buys. Can you just reflect a little bit on how the two sides of what you do would interact with each other and work with each other, and how that can maybe sort of build a good kind of overall campaign?
I think that the agencies, those digital agencies that we compete with, come in and tell clients, you need to stop all that crazy stuff and get online. And I think that that's a huge mistake. And one of my favorite sayings is, everything is with, not instead of. And I think that brands have been doing things very successfully in some of these channels for many, many years. And if anything, these new opportunities create new opportunities. It doesn't take away the value of the other stuff. And I think through proper integration, which, by the way, we were talking about integration advertising long before the internet ever existed, but I think that real sort of smartness in terms of the serendipitous nature of mass media and the ability to build community, actually build loyal followers on the web, can create that perfect storm, to use a really bad cliche. And I think that that's the big thing. For me, that's the big idea, is like, let traditional media do what it does, and let digital do what it does, and let it together figure out the model or strategy. Sometimes it might be more digital, sometimes less. But the story that I anecdotally told my staff today is, what do? I essentially am called in for big brands to do digital. And so I sit at a table. I spend more time with other agencies than with the brands, because this guy's doing TV, this guy's doing market research. But I'm the only guy that doesn't sell what they sell, because they sell what I sell. And so I'm competing with huge agencies that will tell them, we can build your website, we can do your online, but I'm not going and saying, I'll do a 30-second spot, I'll do a print ad. I don't do that. And so I think that there's a little bit of that where it's like, I get it, they have to go after those coffers because some of the traditional channels are dwindling or changing. But I think we have to work together, and it goes back to this idea that you may not make 10 billion this year, you'll only make 8 billion. It's still a good year, so go home to your 42-inch and shut up, just don't,
I also find too that traditional mediums can drive people to websites and online. And even radio. Radio is a great example of a medium that can drive people to a website. We've had many, many success stories where they had a great website, but nobody knows it's there. That's the worst thing about the web. There's so much stuff out there. How do you know where it is and what it is and how to find it? So traditional mediums can be a great way to get people online.
I would even add that I think what's happening more often than not now, from what I see in terms of our users and stuff, is I think new media is driving people to old traditional media. And I think about Spark, it's like I only knew Spark as a podcast. I didn't, and by then going down the rabbit hole that was CBC, I'm suddenly listening to Age of Persuasion and Definitely Not the Opera and all these other things. And at a certain point, we had Search Engine with Jesse. And now I find in the car, my radio is set to CBC when I have my radio on, which isn't, I do sometimes have it on. And that to me is what's really fascinating. Is you see people catching TV shows on ctv.ca and then going to TV to watch stuff. And so I think that that's also a uniquely new thing.
I think you're right, Mitch. I think Mike would agree too. I think we saw our audience really start to grow once the word started to spread online. I think online really brought people to our radio show.
In your book, Terry, you talk a little bit about the whole idea of, the sort of contract and what happens when advertisers break the contract with the public. And this is a bit more of a big picture question, but if we view 2009 as an opportunity to sort of rewrite the contract between advertisers and the public, what would you guys say that contract should look like?
Well, the contract was forged in the 20s, probably when radio appeared, because it was really the first time advertisers did something, which was they created entertainment, radio shows, in order to slot their ads in. But they made a deal with the public, which was, we will give you all this great entertainment if you sit through our ads. And you know what? It was a pretty good deal. And that contract, we believe, has existed to this day, that advertising has to give something back. So ads on radio underwrite all the great music you hear. Ads on TV pay for all the great Sopranos and Mad Men and Dexter and everything else that's on there. Ads in newspapers pay for reporting, ads in magazines pay for editorial, telemarketing pays for nothing. Telemarketing breaks the contract. That's why we're so instantly infuriated when we get that call at supper time. And spam pays for nothing. Once we as an industry break that contract, the public's annoyance with us ratchets. So I think whenever we look, and guerrilla market is expanding, so whenever we look at new mediums, we really as an industry should stop and ask ourselves, does it honor the contract?
I'd almost argue that the contract already exists, the new contract, and I call it Twitter search. That's the new contract, right? Go